Welcome to our video from Auto Garage Life, and today I'm going to be giving you my opinion on this car, the Mercedes R230 SL, and we're going to be going over all the options that you can have when buying this car in terms of engine choices and years, etc., and what kind of things you should be looking out for in terms of price, things to expect when you buy it, when you look to get one and you think it's all good but you need to repair a few bits and pieces, and what kind of maintenance work is involved in keeping one of these cars. So let's get right into it. So Mercedes R230s, this particular model, came out in the UK from 2002, ran all the way up to 2012, but the first generation was from 2002 to 2006. And for the first time ever, it came Mercedes SLs with a folding hard top, like this one. So that replaced the soft top in the previous generation R129s, which did have a hard top option, but it wasn't folding. It was a solid hard top. You'd have to get two people normally to put on and off and then store it somewhere in your garage when you weren't using it. It didn't store anywhere within the car itself. So these folding hard tops are brilliant. They're excellent to watch in operation, but they do come with their problems, and most of the problems tend to be that they don't shut fully or open fully, and that can be down to a sensor not working, or one of the mechanisms not closing properly underneath the boot lid, or the more common one, they leak. So they can leak everywhere. That seal there, that seal there, all the way down the window, the C-pillar, and the one in the trunk there. So when you're looking to buy one of these, if it's an earlier model, even if it's not an earlier model, depends how well it's been looked after, you've got to expect something like that at some point in time. Don't be surprised if you get a few little drips coming in because someone hasn't replaced or maintained the seals properly, and that is one of the big pitfalls, because when water gets into these, especially in the trunk, it spells disaster because the big battery sits in there in the trunk. So that is one of the pitfalls. But going back to the model years, so this was available from launch in the UK as an SL500, which had the 113 series engine, 5 litre V8, developing just over 300 horsepower. I think the official number was 302. This model that I've got also was out at that time, which is the SL350. It's got the M112 engine, and it comes as a 3.7 litre V6 with 242 official horsepower. Just say 250 for argument's sake. It's just 50 odd shy of the SL500 V8. But then in 2003 came what was my personal favourite, the SL55 AMG, which had a 5.5 litre V8 supercharged engine, developing nearly 500 horsepower. I think the official number is 493, and 700 newton meters of torque, which was epic. 2003, back then, that was supercar stuff. That was honestly superb. So those were the kind of first models that came out, but there was also kind of less shouty version, an SL600, which was but the same power as the SL55, but slightly more torque because it had a 5.5 litre V12 engine, non-supercharged. Then came in 2004 the SL65 AMG, which was 6 litre V12 with 600 horsepower, I think it was 604, and 1,000 newton meters of torque, which was mammoth. My favourite one was the SL55, so I like the supercharger whine, but obviously going up the rank from the 350, 500, 55, 600 and 65 for the first kind of generation gets more pricey. So in 2006, this car got a facelift as well. In terms of the engine, it went from a 3.7 litre V6 to a 3.5, but pumping out a little bit more horsepower at 272. And the SL500, it grew to 5.5 litres, putting it up to 383 horsepower, which was more in line, to be honest, with a big V8 rather than the first one. So a bit of a difference there, over 100 more than what this had. In 2008, we got the second kind of gen of the R230, which was the biggest cosmetic change, which involved getting rid of what is my favourite part of this car, the quad headlights. So the new one came with the kind of standard, I say standard, it's the same kind of square headlights you would see on the C-Class or the E-Class of that generation. Similar in style. And the front end was changed slightly, as was the back end. And it just lost that kind of quad and went to a single headlamp unit. Got a new grille on it and it had a couple of power domes, power humps on the bonnet as well. And I think, I could be wrong with this, that most of them came with a kind of rear diffuser that had kind of lines going across it, whereas mine's is smooth. So, what's the best one to get? Well, it's really up to you, but if you're a DIYer like me, and you've always wanted one of these cars, and you want one that you can work on yourself, I would go for this SL350 because it's the easiest one to work on. It doesn't have ABC suspension, it's just got regular old shocks and springs. Not going to be able to see that, there you go. Regular shocks and springs. And the 500 model up the way all came pretty much with the ABC suspension, which, if you don't know what that is, I'll link up to another video showing you my 5 top tips explaining the pitfalls of that. Don't get me wrong, it's a system that when it works, it is immense. Cornering's tremendous. If you're buying a 20-year-old car, you've got to expect some repairs with it, I'm afraid. And it will leak, and you'll just come out one day, that gap between your wheel will be gone, and the car will be sitting hunkered down on one corner, and you'll probably have an ABC suspension leak somewhere, which can be pricey. The struts are expensive, can be about £600-700 per corner for a strut for that suspension, plus the time taken to diagnose where the leak's coming from. So one to watch out for, which is one of the reasons why, as a second car for me, I was happy with SL350. Now, if money were no object, what one would I get? Honestly, I'd get the 55 AMG. It's the one that's, I would say, or suggest perhaps, is the most tunable, and it's the one that provides to me the best noise because it's got the supercharger, and you can tune it to beyond what the 600 and the 65 AMG horsepower have. And I've seen ones with 700-800 horsepower on them, and it's crazy stuff. Even the standard ones get close to 500, and it just drives like an absolute monster. So, but I've got a monster out there, so I thought that'll do. We'll leave that one and we'll have this as a wee summer car. So, maintenance costs. Running this car, how much does it cost? So, first generation ones that come out before 2006 are going to fall into the favourable tax bracket here in the UK, which means you're going to be paying a little bit less. I think it's 300 and something quid for this one. And any 500s or 55s of the same year would probably be the same. It's registered after, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, March 2006. It falls into the higher tax band, so you're $600 a year. So you're £300 worse off with a newer one, but you might save £300 a year in repairs. Who knows? Something to look out for. Maintenance costs, take this to Mercedes, you're going to be putting your hand in your back pocket, in your wallet, and in other people's pockets every single time, because a health check in one of these now will reveal loads of issues, loads of problems that probably aren't apparent to the immediate driver or the user of the car, but Mercedes dealerships will suggest that all that gets fixed. Now, I do the maintenance in this myself. I take it to a garage for an MOT. Horror stories about the SBC pump and the brakes preventing you from doing the brakes yourself. Not the case. You can, just don't open the door. If you're doing the brakes yourself, do not open the passenger driver door of the trunk. You'll get keyless entry, which some of these came with. Little key cards that they have, get that away, and you can work on the brakes like a regular car. I've seen dozens of these cars been worked on without having to switch off the SBC pump. Not saying go and do it yourself. If you're doing it yourself, take your own risk. I'm just telling you my experience. But don't be scared of them, because it is, at the end of the day, calipers and pads and discs the same as every other car. So, mentioned the trunk and the trunk and the roof leaks earlier on. Put my video up in the cards on how I repaired this one. Mercedes would have wanted at least £265 for the part that I fixed. I didn't buy the part, I just repaired the bit that was needing fixed and done it for less than a tenner. I've also replaced the valve cover gaskets on this car because it was leaking oil from the valve covers. Again, cost of the gaskets, that's all it did for me, but go to Mercedes and it will probably be a good few hours labour at 160, £70 an hour, I'd imagine. So basically, if you buy one of these cars, regardless of the engine, they're all going to have the same folding hardtop roof. They're all going to have the same issues, possibly with suspension if you've got ABC. And they're all old engines now, so you're always going to have to maintain them. So if you can't do stuff in these cars yourself, or if you don't know a reliable independent mechanic, be prepared to put your hand in your pocket, because they are old girls now and they're all getting on a bit in life. So expect problems. Don't buy one in the summer expecting it to be immaculate, because chances are it won't be. This one pretty much is, and I'm going to say it because I keep this maintained as best I possibly can, and I do preventative maintenance on it. So I'll do oil changes twice a year. I'll check the brake pads every single time I do an oil change. I'll do the seals. I'll change the plugs once every 2 years, or however the maintenance goes for it. But I did everything in this car after I bought it, so that I know when the next interval's coming up. So price-wise, let's talk about price. Doing a quick search on Auto Trader here in the UK right now, the cheapest one of these is £4,000 for an early model. The most expensive regular one is £40,000, which is a 2011 plate or something like that. But you do get the odd special edition Black Series ones or whatever. It's one of them fetched 80 grand. I saw on Auto Trader. I don't know whether it's sold for that, but that's what it was advertised for. But in general, for this model here, the 350, you're talking between 4 and approximately maybe 12 for a good one. Later models even more, maybe 14, 15. But usually, if you go to the lower end of the market, all those problems that I've just mentioned, you're going to get every one of them. This one, bodywork is, I'm going to say, it's not immaculate. I need to do a little bit more machine polishing and some touch-ups on a few bits and pieces. But to the regular person looking at this is almost brand new looking. It really is. Very few stone chips. I have hand polished it once, but I need to do machine polishing on it. And there's only one tiny little dent on the roof, which you can barely see there, and a little tiny bit of rust that I'm going to repair. Apart from that, for the age of this car, that's good. You go to £4,000, you're going to see an absolute howler, and it's going to have the leather will all be torn. Mine is pretty good inside as well. The 2008 facelift model did change the steering wheel slightly, but for the main, the dashboards and all that look pretty much the same throughout this whole R230's model year. But mine, as you can see, is in tip-top condition. Believe you me, most of them are not like this. Most of them have been neglected. There are older cars. Some people only buy them for the summertime. Some people only buy them for a few months. And don't be put off if you find one and it's had 5 or 6 owners. These kind of cars will be typical of that, because people will buy them for 6 months in the summer, spring, summer, and then punt them in the winter when it comes to this time of year. And then maybe someone else will do the same next year. So that's why a lot of them will have lost a lot of maintenance, because they've changed owners quite a few times and people just don't bother sometimes to do things that they should be doing. But if you're buying one, don't be put off. I think mine had 4 owners, but 2 of them were garages, and one was a gentleman that kept it garaged in his own property, so not too bad. But yeah, I mean, the best time to buy these, probably now, winter time. As soon as the summer's finished, autumn kicks in, people do this with them, put them in garages, or they want to punt them on and sell them. And the old saying goes, roof goes down, price goes up. So convertibles are always going to be worth money. Money-wise, I've always seen Mercedes SLs dip to a certain point and then go up. So you go and look at R129 editions, and the prices of them are on par, if not sometimes more expensive than the prices of these, and these will be next. These will go up in value as well, based on the trend of previous Mercedes SLs. And if you're buying one, I would try and avoid buying one in the summer. I know that's probably when you're going to want it, but that's when the prices will be at their highest, when demand's slightly higher. Good time to buy a convertible, I say, is in the winter. Just after summer's finished, or right now, just before Christmas time. And that way nobody's really interested in them, and you can have it. It's maybe, I'm not going to say cheaper, but the price won't have increased that few £100 perhaps, or £1,000, as it may do in the summertime. So to get a good one of these, an SL350, to go back to price, you're probably talking about 8,000–9,000 quid. This is a 2005 plate one. 9 grand get you a good one with only minor issues perhaps. And the later models, like I say, they can fetch still high teens, 20s at times, so there's still quite a lot of them available, up to 40k. So, running costs, MPG, really, if you're buying one of these, doesn't matter if you go for the V6 or the V8, the MPG sucks. It's not that type of car. I'm getting mid-20s in this, and I drive it just run about town and stuff like that, maybe even high 20s if I was motorway driving, but they're not that type of car. Very comfortable on long journeys, don't get me wrong, but MPG wise, nah, you're better off going to buy like a 1.4 Golf or something if that's your bag, but not really going to get 40 at the gallon if that's what your expectations are. So, parts availability, no problem. You can get most of the service items at regular car parts places in the UK. Plenty of stuff online. Use Autodoc or something like that. You'll get all the brake hoses and lines and brake pads and engine gaskets and all that kind of stuff from Autodoc. Easy peasy. And there's a lot of breakers yards that will have these that are getting broken up. So if you need a wing or something like that, or a door panel, there should be plenty on eBay and stuff that you can pick from. There's loads of these in the UK. Very popular car. So no concerns about spare parts whatsoever. Some parts, like the headlights, can be expensive, even if you get them from a used part dealer or a scrap yard. But hopefully you won't have to repair or replace them very often. But just to point out, and there's a lot of aftermarket parts for them as well. This grille is aftermarket. I've got aftermarket wing mirrors that I haven't fitted yet, but I will do very soon, and an aftermarket rear spoiler. See, to be honest, it's exactly the same fitment as the standard spoiler that came on the 65 AMGs and the 55 AMGs, so for the fraction of the price, it looks exactly the same. Nobody could tell the difference. So overall ownership experience, love it. It's worth the money. Definitely would recommend buying one if you can kind of tick all the boxes that I mentioned earlier and you're comfortable with it. No hesitation of me recommending one of these cars as long as you've got someone or you can maintain it yourself. You do need to get possibly a good diagnostics machine. I've tried a few from iCarsoft, but Foxwell seems to be the best one I've tried. It can turn off the SBC function on the brakes if that's what you want to do. Or you could splash out and get the Mercedes Star software, which has basically got everything. But so far I've not needed that for any jobs, so I'm good with the ones that I have. And I do have videos on how I've managed to Bluetooth my phone to the car's audio system without changing the head unit, so go and look at them as well. And drop me a like on those videos while you're at it. So, plenty of repair videos on these for doing stuff if you're wanting to buy one yourself. Go and check them out, please. If you don't mind, that would really help me out because I really enjoy making these videos and I want to continue doing so with this car. So I think that will wrap up this video for just now. And leave a like, comment below and hit the subscribe button. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.